inspired by the adoption of our daughter from Korea when she was 6 months old. It's not her story. You know, her story is interesting. When she graduated from college, I gave her and her mother a trip to Seoul, and she had not been back to Korea since she was an infant. And on that trip, she learned a lot of her true history, but that history is not the history recorded in this book. So I've taken great liberties with her actual history to create the fiction, but the process of adopting an Asian child undoubtedly served as the inspiration for this book. The story of the book is a story essentially about family and how flexible families need to be a family and to stay a family, because I think we're all born into molds, and I think discovering the limits of our personal molds is part of what maturity and growing up is all about. And we all encounter situations and people in our lives that cause us to step out of that mold and view who we really are, and this adoption was that kind of a process for me. I was born into a very conservative Southern family. They didn't even believe in adoption, much less adoption of Asians. And so the idea of having two biological children and having the ability to have more, the idea of adopting someone who wasn't a cousin whose parents had died in a house fire, and it was an adoption of necessity. The idea of adopting someone unrelated by blood or heritage was so foreign to the world that I grew up in. And as you know, throughout the South, blood is everything. And so the idea of doing that was very foreign, and it produced quite a backlash. Now, my wife is from the Northwest, and she didn't come with that blood baggage. She came with an entirely different paradigm for family. And so, and she was the motivating force behind it, and if I'm honest about it, I would admit that I did it because she wanted to. And she convinced me that if I ever wanted a daughter, I was going to have to go this route because we would never have one the old-fashioned way. And in fact, the day after we found out Mary Beth was arriving in New York, we found out we were expecting again. And my wife, Barbara, said, "Don't worry, it will be a boy," and it was a boy, and so she's been right pretty much down the line. So anyway, she came to us when she was 6 months old, and she was a great kid, and will be 35 next week, which stuns me.